The View from the Bay starts now.
Thank you. Okay, welcome to The View from the Bay.
All right, ladies. Let go of trying to be perfect. With strategies to help you and your child be more content and happy. Here with some insight is the Executive Director of the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. Welcome back, Dr. Christine Carter. Welcome
Good to see you
back.
again.
Hi. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's it.
I love that you call perfectionism a disease. I am infected, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Why do you call it a disease?
I call it a disease because it's a condition that prevents us from performing optimally, like having a cold might in some ways. So I don't mean clinically that it is a disease, but it really is a problem for people. It's a particular kind of unhappiness.
Tell me how it is that it keeps us from performing optimally, because I think many of us think that striving for perfection is what leads to success.
Yeah, actually, it doesn't. That's sort of a common misconception that perfectionists are successful always. And actually, there's an irony here to perfectionism, in that being a perfectionist really means that you're driven, at least in part, by a fear of making mistakes, a fear of failing. And so that takes a lot of energy to be driven by a fear of being judged by others or looking stupid.
Don't you find moms too? I mean, like, especially moms, there's so much pressure to be this. There's this facade that I think we all feel like we have to live up against, and I think a lot of moms would agree that facade and what's really going on at home are two totally different things. But it's that perfectionism for the facade, not for the life.
Well, imagine me. I'm a mom, and I study the childhood happiness.
And how happy are your kids?
Right. So that's the most common question people ask me all the time. Are your kids happy? So I certainly relate to that as a mom, and that feeling like I want my kids to be perfectly happy.
Well, what was your aha moment when you realized that, you know, I can't be perfect, so why am I placing all this pressure on myself?
Well, there were a few moments. One is realizing that all the research around why people tend to be successful, why elite performers, for example, get to where they are, why highly successful people get to where they are. You know, there is lots of research across lots of different disciplines, and perfectionism is never one of those factors. You really need to be successful. You really need to be comfortable making mistakes. You need to be able to rise to challenges. And one of the many problems with perfectionism is that it leads us to avoid making mistakes and to really avoid challenges.
And conflict. You know, you're just so busy getting it done that maybe nobody will say anything about it. Testify. Can I hear it out in the audience?
So if not perfection, then what is it we should be striving for? What should be that motivating force that drives us to be really, really good at stuff?
Well, I think that people think that if they're not perfectionists, then they won't be really, really good at stuff. So I think it's important for people to understand that we're not talking about lowering the bar here or being less successful. That it is perfectly fine to strive for success, but one way to handle this conflict is to decide what success is for you. And then when you meet it, when you meet that expectation in yourself or in your children, be happy with it. Perfectionists suffer from a steady stream of discontent with.
Don't you think the perfectionists too, and I'm guilty of this too, which is why I'm throwing out these generalizations, but I mean, don't you think they're so worried about those actions? They're not even really thinking about themselves. I think if you were happier with yourself and more content in yourself, having every T crossed and every I dotted is not going to be so important because you're comfortable with yourself.
I think it's actually really a comfort with mistakes and an understanding that mistakes are a great opportunity to learn, and there's really nothing to be afraid of in making mistakes.
Now, that's such an important point. How do we teach that to our kids? Because I think kids sometimes see the parents trying to be perfect all the time, and we make them crazy.
We model it. Well, we want and expect them to be perfect, and we want and expect ourselves to be perfect, and so that, you know, since none of us are perfect, kids feel really criticized when we want that for them, and confused. So here's what I do at home that I think is a way to model comfort with mistakes. At the dinner table or whenever you're talking to your kids, have everybody go around the table and talk about a time that they made a mistake that week or that day, and then what they learned from it. So this should not be necessarily just a you know, okay, what did we do wrong this week? You know, there needs to be a lightness to it that, you know, it's totally okay to make mistakes. And in fact, we can really grow and be successful because of the mistakes that we've made.
Well, and that's a good place for the parents maybe to step in first. You know, like you said, it's not, you know, you don't want to say, what did you do wrong today? The laser spotlight is on you now.
You know, and I was just talking to a friend who was talking about how she's modeling not being the perfect parent to her kids. So she uses dinner time as a time to go back and say, you know, I really think I made a mistake when I told you this. And I want to correct that.
Well, you know, I actually learned a lesson about perfectionism or not trying to be so perfect from my kids when they were very young. You know, I was on the air, very recognizable, and everywhere we would go as a family, people would come up and start talking. Now, I like people, and I like to engage people, but sometimes people would be obnoxious. Like, I'd be sitting at dinner with my family, and the person who recognized me would come and sit at the table with us and start talking. And my kids used to say, Dad, you don't always have to be so sweet and so engaging. If someone's being obnoxious, send them a message that this is your private time. And I started thinking about that, and I found, you know, tactful ways to send that message.
Well, and I think a lot of it is talking to yourself, too. I know myself especially, and other moms don't even entertain in their homes because they think the house should be perfect. And it's this cyclical thing, you know, it's like you don't feel good enough about your house, so you don't have friends over, and now you're alone, and you don't ever have parties. I mean, it's so much about letting that go.
Yes, absolutely. And finding ways to be happy. You know, really, one of the most important things in being happy is having friends and letting go of all those little imperfections. You know, sometimes second best really is good enough.
Or even better.
Yeah, or even better.
You know, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think letting go and just being yourself is absolutely, it's what's changed my life. People, there was a quote that I read a long time ago, and I don't know who said it, but it says, you are cooler than your stuff.
That is true. So, I'd have to agree with that.
Next time we mess up on the show and the bosses say, why did you do that? Say, hey, man, I'm letting go. I'm letting go. I don't have to be perfect. Right.
Where can we find your blog?
At greatergoodparents.org. There's
There's
lots more information about perfectionism and raising happy kids.
I'm definitely going to check that out because it's important.
Thank you.
Dr. Christine Carter, thank you so much. So good to see you again, as
Such
always.
good information. You got to come back.
I will.
Have an almost perfect weekend.
Almost. And if you mess up, it's okay.
See you.